Got an exciting video for you today because I'm going to be showing you Cube. This is a virtual instrument by Lunacy Audio. They're a new developer. This is their first virtual instrument, and it's been out for about a year and a half. They also have a new expansion coming out today, which I will use a little bit of, but this video is going to be more about my impressions of the virtual instrument as a first-time user. So Lunacy Audio contacted me. I had a great chat with them about the virtual instrument. They're sponsoring this video, but they don't have a say in what I am presenting in this video, which is fine because a lot of people send me virtual instruments to review, and I don't always review them if I don't find them something new or exciting. And this virtual instrument, I'm telling you, is very, very cool. They're doing something very different. I think you're going to dig it. I'm going to use it in kind of a soundtrack genre today, show you some ideas with that. I'll also show you in like sort of hip hop and Maschine and maybe some lo-fi kind of bent with this virtual instrument as well. So it's not just soundtrack based, although that is obviously something that it would shine in. Venus Theory has a great video on this virtual instrument already, and actually he has created some of the patches for this new expansion called Rumble. So let's go check out the details of it, show you some ideas, and help you decide if this is a virtual instrument you want to add to your arsenal. Okay, so here is a little idea. I started in Cubase, and here's the main instrument interface. And the first thing I did is went to the browser by clicking on a patch, and I got down about 4 patches in, and I found this Way Away patch, and I instantly got inspired and started playing something. Just a really nice, expressive, arpeggiated patch. And so something happened right away, and I got these beautiful chords out of it. And made this little progression up. Anyway, so that's the gist of this little idea that I'll show you in a little bit here. But let's look at some of the most basic things about this software. So the first thing I thought when I saw this software was that it was some kind of surround sound kind of thing, and it's not. This whole 3D space is devoted to morphing between different sample sounds. So what they dreamed up was this idea of having up to 8 different samples loaded in 4 corners in this virtual 3D space and give you the ability to use something called an orbit or an orbit path to move from any one of those corners in different ways. And so they allow you to draw your own path in, so you can go, just between 2 samples, 2 different samples at the top here, or you can use some of their path presets. And the way this software works is it's all sample based, and the samples are beautiful, very, well curated kind of samples. Some of them are multi-sampled over the keyboard, and some of them are just one sample that's been stretched, but there is no way for you to go in and see that kind of layering. Next, at the bottom, we can see this orbit motion, and you can see it's cycling through a path here over 8 bars. If I click on the orbits right here, what this path is going to do is it's going to move us between these different samples. So before I even show you the orbit motion, let's just turn off the orbit motion for a second and just show you what it sounds like if you go to each one of these corners of this virtual room. So if I hold Shift, it moves front to back with the mouse by moving up and down. I can go to this corner right here and hear this sample right here, deep tone. And we can hear an arpeggiated patch. If I move to the other corner, we get this one. This one. One of my favorites. So you can hear how these 2 bottom ones are similar, and these top ones are similar. So we're getting this bass line that's happening in this patch whenever we play. So we're getting multiple arpeggiators happening at the same time. And so you realize very quickly that although this orbit thing here looks like the most exciting thing, there's so much more that's happening with this software than just this orbit thing. And a lot of patches don't have any path at all. They're just multiple samples doing different things at the same time. Very cool stuff, very innovative, not like any other virtual instrument that I've seen before. On the left-hand side, you can see we've got an ether slider, and they've also done some stuff behind the scenes with every sample, where they recorded a version that was lighter, and then they also had a version that was somehow more intense. And so this ether slider takes your samples and makes them more intense, whatever that means. So sometimes it feels like a filter, other times you can tell it's a different sample altogether. So now what I can do is show you, if I click on the sounds right here, we can see what are in the 8 different corners. So you can see a little map here to show you A, B, C, D for the front ones, E, F, G, H for the back ones. And all we have to do is click on it, and now we get this little editor for corner A, for this top corner, and just overview to go back. So I click on this one right here, I can solo it, choose the start point for the sample, reverse it, move the start time over, do all sorts of creative things in this little area just to this one sound. We can play with the envelope, we can adjust the tone, we've got 2 filters and then a format control in the middle. And then we can play with the pan as well. Now we can actually take sounds and say, okay, on this front one right here, let's make that one to the left and this one to the right. And then as it's moving through your orbit path, it is actually moving in the stereo field. But generally, you're going to find that it's not necessarily that case. That's what I kind of expected visually when I saw this. Then what I can do is I can also click this tweak button. And here's where we can see this arpeggiator. If I didn't have this loop engaged, we wouldn't have an arpeggiator. And all we would have is the patch, which is fine. Sometimes you might want that. But with the loop engaged, it's different from a sample loop where it might loop the middle portion of a sound so that you can have a really long pad as long as you're holding down the keys. But in this case, it's kind of different. What the loop means is it's just going to keep playing the note according to the arpeggiator settings down at the bottom. So we can see the arpeggiator steps, and what I've done here for some of my patches is taken the arpeggiated patch that already exists and then changed it so that it fits the timing of my song. In Maschine, I'm going to show you some sort of hip-hoppy songs, and those ones have a swing to them. And so I took whatever the patch designer created with the arpeggio and put a swing to it. And now this dun 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 dun, this patch, the sound that's being re-triggered is swinging with the swing settings in my Maschine project. So very essential. To me, if an arpeggiator can't swing, it's kind of useless because I want to have swing in a lot of the music that I make when I get into the more jazzy, hip-hoppy stuff. So this patch already was set to triplets. So if I go to the C corner right here, we can see that it's not set to triplets. So it's doing just quarter notes. And that's what's giving us that really neat doom, 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 quarter note bass line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I could make that go faster if I want. Or I could set it to triplets and start playing around with the arpeggiator right here. I also love how they've got length, so we can kind of do like a gate. And we can also, of course, adjust velocity. And then we can also play around with pitch in here. We can choose the up and down, the going through the chord or whatever. And if we look on this right here, we can see that the other arpeggiators are set totally different in those settings as well. So that's how this works. Every single one of these corners can have totally different settings here under this sounds menu. And then they make it really easy. If you did something really cool and you wanted it to go on all the other patches, there's different ways to copy the information. So you right click on a corner and you say copy corner, and then I can go and paste it over here. Or I can right click on this one and say, apply the corner sound to all corners. So now all corners get the same sound in it really quickly. Apply the corner loop to all corners. So maybe you did something in that arpeggiator and you can instantly send it to all of the other corners. So there's really simple ways for you to build a patch quickly. That's what I love about this virtual instrument so far. So looking over at the orbits menu now, we can see that I can adjust the intensity of this by cranking this up. And now it's going to swim between these corners, kind of like going like this. Except it allows you to do the front to back as well. So I could choose a motion. I could actually go and make my own motion if I click the edit button right here. I could also go in and choose presets that they've already got in there. So this is a bow tie and it's moving between. We could go bottoms up and it's just going to move from the top to the bottom. It's going to slowly move back. And I can click on this little drop-down menu so I can make my own path right here. So you just understand that these axis sculptors are using orbit paths that they've created. And I went and made a couple of my own as well. Very easy to do that. But you click on these ones and you're going to get some kind of bizarre shape of how this is moving from these 8 corners. If I click on the axis sculptor and change it to orbit stepper, here I can say step 1 is going to start right here, and I can move it to the front, or maybe make it not so far back and maybe push it back in 3D space a little. And then I'm going to go onto this next space, or next step, and have it go to the very front right there. And then I'm going to add another step, and we're just going to put that one right there. And then we're going to add another step, and we're going to take it back over to where it started. And look at the shadows. See how the shadows are kind of guiding me to show me where that other path started. So you can see how easy it is to draw in your own path, or to go in and start playing around with some of the orbits they've got. Like, look at this one, it's jumping between the different corners. So it's taken me a few days to get my brain around how powerful this actually is and the potential that it has. The modulation in this software is fantastic. So you've got 4 LFOs and a macro to play with. If I click on the mod matrix here, you can see how easy it is to assign LFOs to something. So I can click this little drop down, and we're going to say take LFO1, and we're going to assign that to filter global, and then we're just going to go global filter. So you realize that there's more than just these orbits that can change how these sounds are fading in and out. You can actually use LFOs for that as well. And that's where sometimes you load up a patch and it gets confusing. You're wondering what parameters tweaking what on here. So it does take some digging once you load up a patch and try and figure out under the hood what exactly is happening there. So that's the modulation. Very easy to assign modulation in this one. And then over in effects, of course, we've got things like filter, EQ, distortion, delay, reverb, all of the good stuff, and then an EQ down at the bottom. And we can also assign LFOs to things like effects. All right, so I think that's enough for the overview. What we should do now is look at some of my little song ideas and play around with that a little bit and show you how quick it was for me to come up with some ideas. So here's my first idea with those fun chords. The next patch that I've got in here of Cube is called Dune Walker. Really beautiful patch. That's my lead sound. Next patch I've got in there is called Death's Door. Let's just load that one from the start and have a listen to it. We've got some percussion that's happening, some taiko type percussion. If I go look over at the sounds, you see I've got taiko strikes and then some other stuff. And if we don't like the volume of a sound and the orbit isn't doing anything, all we have to do is go and change the volume of that particular parameter right here. So this is kind of like the mixer for your different sounds. Next one I've got is called Detonation. And then the last patch that I've got in here is called Mass Effect. Another huge Brahms sound, so we can see this thing pulsing back and forth really quickly. All right, so let's have a listen to this little idea. Super inspiring stuff. Very, very impressed. Let's go look at some hip hop style stuff and maybe some lo-fi stuff and see if you can imagine what this instrument would be like in a totally different genre. Okay, so for this little idea here, I do have a loop that I based this off of, and that was just a Crate Cuts loop. And then I added a kit from the new expansion called Concrete Sun. And let's listen to the first patch here. So a really beautiful keyboard type patch. Next one we've got in there is this panning breath one. And let's look at the orbit for that one. So that one's tug of war, and it's just moving between these two sides. So if we go look at the sounds on that one, we can see we've only got sounds from A, B, C, and D. So that means it doesn't make sense for this orb to go anywhere near the back ones. But what I think I did on this one is I went to the sound menu and I clicked on the ones on the left-hand side, so A and C, and I panned them over to the left. And then I went to B and D and panned them to the right. Next one I messed around with here was one called Titans. And this is one of Venus Theory's patches. And so when you're in the browser, you can actually see who made the patch. It's got some notes with it as well. It's all about trolls. Let's have a listen to this patch here. Really cool sound. But let's load up a new group here, and I'll show you what the patch initially sounded like. So I knew I had this swing thing happening, but let's look at how the patch was first built and what I had to do to change it. So we'll go to Rumble. There's Titans right here. Let's listen to it. Versus this one right here. So you can hear how that sound now, that swing that I've got on there is going to fit if I solo this and put it with the loop here. So taking the rhythm of this patch here and making sure that it fits with the rhythm of my groove. And you can see we've got all sorts of different hits happening in here. And all I need to do is click on one of them, go over to tweak, and see which ones are arpeggiated, which ones are pulsing. We can see A, B, C, and D. None of those are pulsing at all. There's no arpeggiators happening. So if I go to E, we can see that one has an arpeggiator on it. Let's solo it. All I did is went in here and added some swing to it. So we'll crank the swing up to, my swing is at 40%, and it lines up nicely with the swing in Maschine. And we can see that doesn't work at all, but it's because it's on 8th notes right now. So if I set this to 16th, swinging 16th notes, and we also see that it's 10 steps. So I think what I did is I went and changed those steps so that it was something like 8 or 16. So let's set this to 16 steps. And now we can see that little rhythm that I've just created is swung and it's fitting with the beat, right? So I went and did that for all of the different corners. So that's how I made this beautiful patch here by Venus Theory Swing. The other patch I've got here on my sort of chorus thing is another Brahms sound. And I've also got this patch called Accordington. That's what's doing the lead sound in this one. So I'm just going to go over and play this in as a new clip. Beautiful stuff, very inspiring. Loving these sounds. Let me show you another idea. With this one, we started with this surveillance patch, and it's really slow. It's not meant to be played this slow, I bet. But it kind of works really nicely for this lo-fi thing that I've got going on here. So it's this plucky thing moving through the space. Next, we've got this angelic dust, and this one. I've also got a bass patch in here. And then we've also got a piano patch. So I really recommend you go watch some videos on the software and have a listen to some of the other patches in here, because I'm just scratching the surface and I'm getting very inspired. You see how easy it is. You just put a little heart next to the patches you like. One thing I'd love to see with the browser is the ability to load up little previews as you go through. Here are the previews like we've got in other software. That would be great. I'd also love to see an undo button on this. That's something that I would benefit from, because sometimes I'll try something and then all of a sudden I realize, oh, that sounded terrible, and I can't remember where it was set to before that. So just a few things that I talked to the developers about, and they take down notes of what people want and they work on these feature updates. So this is the latest version. And another thing that they added to this version, which I haven't even mentioned, is the fact that you can import your own samples. So the Polybrute is probably one of my favorite synthesizers, and it's got its own morph abilities. So you can morph between one patch to another, but it's only 2 patches. So it'd be great to start importing beautiful sounds off the Polybrute, load them into multiple corners, and build my own evolving textures that can change maybe over a really long period. So that's what's so cool about this software. Load in your own patches. There's a great video on that. Probably something I should do in a future video is show how I can integrate other synthesizers into this virtual instrument and benefit from the distinct and unique abilities of this virtual instrument. So let's just play this little tune out, and I hope you enjoyed this. This is my little lo-fi idea. Make sure you check all the links in the description and go show some support to this small group of developers that are just brilliant, creative people making a piece of software that is exciting and new, because we're kind of at the point of diminishing returns with virtual instruments. And so it's so neat to see somebody doing something totally different. So thanks, Lunacy Audio. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and the bell. I'll see you in the next video. Here we go.